Yeah.
Ready?
Can I get an encore?
Man, oh man, I'm pumped. How many of you guys want more happiness in your life? Show of hands, real high. Hold them up, hold them up. How many of you guys want more success? Other hand. All right, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to deliver on either of those. But as you just heard, there's power in proximity in the people in this room, the folks you're sitting next to, and I have no doubt that amongst you guys are going to be able to solve any problem that could come up. How many of you guys have one of these in your pockets? Pull them out, hold them high. I just want to see, hold them up high. All right, let's do it, guys. Here's what I want you to do is pull up. Like, this is actually something my 2-year-old taught me the other day, or 3-year-old. You can actually swipe like that to activate your camera. A little trick. Some of you guys are blown, like your minds are blown right now. I'm going to do a pano. So I do this. You guys take a photo as well. I'm like the opposite of most speakers. They're like, please be quiet. Don't take pictures. Wow, this is so cool with the lights. I do this for 2 reasons. One, I believe that as a community, the number one thing we can do to support the people we care about is share stories about what we're doing, the fact that you're in this room, the fact that you care about kind of improving your mindset and growing. And 2 is it gives me a lot of photos of myself on stages. I know, some of you guys are like, damn, that's so smart. So you guys can borrow that one. I know what you're thinking right now. Does Dan do CrossFit? Right? I know. Right? Or maybe you're thinking, man, did he actually color coordinate his shirt to the event? Is he that smart? Is that what you guys thinking? Nope. I just thought it looked like a Friday type shirt, a little bit of a party. Actually, funny story. If you want to know, do you guys want to know how you know if somebody does CrossFit? They don't shut the fuck up about it. I mean, you kind of already saw exactly. Yeah, clap that one up. But truthfully, I'm known for starting business. I actually just started an ovarian photo marketplace online. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. We just launched in the last 30 minutes. It's huge. Cover of the Times and Transcript. But seriously, today I want to talk about the power of proximity. First off, I want to thank everybody for being here. I take it as a true honor for people to take their time away from everything else in their day and show up. So I'm committed to giving you guys 110%. I'd also ask you to give a big round of applause to Marcel for putting this crazy event on. This is amazing. To Mr. Marcel. I actually call him Mr. Little Steps. Think about that one. It's going to get to you. Hey, it's funny. Mr. Little Steps. It's Petit Pas, guys. Come on. There we go. All right. Today I want to share a few stories. My background is business. I've been building companies since I was 17. Those that know my story, I grew up in a pretty challenging environment. I call it a colorful childhood. Colorful means a lot of trouble. By the age of 17, I found myself in a high-speed chase just outside of Sussex, wanting to end my life. And I ran into the side of a house, and I went to grab a gun that was stuck in a suitcase, and it wouldn't come out. And before I knew it, my feet didn't even touch the ground. I got pulled out of the car, threw in the back of the cop car, and I woke up sober the next day in a jail cell. And I tell you that story because 4 months later, I found myself in St. John Regional Correctional Center, and a guard named Brian pulled me aside, sat me down, looked at me, looked through me, and for the first time in my life, here was a man telling me that I didn't belong there, that he'd seen me for the last 4 months doing my work, trying to stay out of trouble, and that he believed in me. And I don't know if it was that I was ready to hear that message, but it shifted everything. I wouldn't be here today talking to you on stage. I'd likely be in an institution or dead. And I ended up going to rehab, Portage, New Brunswick, for 11 months. Most programs are 4 months. It just tells you how thick my skull can be. I thought I was doing good. My problem was that I was always kind of playing into the role. I was acting like a chameleon. I really wasn't working on myself. And it was the people that I met there that really forced me to look inward. After 11 months, I actually discovered computer programming in a little cabin. There's a cabin on the facilities that was locked, and almost a month before I was finished, we were cleaning up one of the cabins, and we saw this computer sitting there, and there was a book on Java programming. And I opened the book and I started reading it, and it kind of read like English, and I'm thinking to myself, can it be that simple to write a computer program? And I booted up the computer and typed at the command line to Java executor, and I typed hello world. So if you've ever programmed anything, you've gone pro if you've typed hello world. Like that is the app, all right? Shortly after I got released, I discovered this thing called the internet, kind of a big deal, maybe you've heard of it. Transformed my life. I remember I was trying to make a decision between being a botanist or a computer programmer, and my botany for obvious reasons, hopefully you guys. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, all right? My dad, I remember my dad said very distinctly, he's like, you can always have a garden as a hobby. You are going in this computer thing. At 17, I started my first company called MaritimeVacation.ca. Big lesson in business for those of you guys starting off is don't start a business with a very small customer base. So at the time, I think there was about 20 cottages in Shediac. That was my total market size. Didn't make for a great business. I did learn how to make $1 on the internet, which is always a good thing. Shortly thereafter, I had another brilliant idea to start a web hosting company. Here's the thing you got to understand about business. Don't start a business in a commodity industry. Like if you came to me and said, I want to sell salt, I would probably tell you to stop selling salt, right? It's really, and some of you guys are like, why is salt so bad? Trust me, you want to create something differentiated. All I knew is that if you want no life whatsoever and have customers that hardly pay you anything, start a web hosting company. And that's what I did for a year. Me and my brother both lost a bunch of money, but we learned a lot of business lessons. And it wasn't until I was 24 that I kind of figured it out, in the sense that I started to read books. I started surrounding myself with people that had been there before. And I started my first company, or my third company that finally succeeded, called Spheric Technologies. And over a 4-year period, we grew it to 30 employees, millions in revenue, and eventually got acquired in 2008. And then I decided to move to San Francisco to see if any of my crazy ideas would hold water with some of the smartest entrepreneurs in the world. I started a few technology companies there. Also got to invest in some really cool companies like Intercom and GetAround and Unbounce and, Hootsuite. And I share that with you guys because when I look back where I'm at today and things I accomplished, there's no way that I would have thought that I could have ever gotten there. And the real power lies in the people that I was fortunate enough to have around me. You know, when I was building my company, Spheric Technologies, we were 2 years into the business, and it was December 2000. I was 26 at the time. I started when I was 24. December 2006. And what happens at the end of the year are two things for me. One is my birthday, which is December 26th, which is always that time that you get to reflect on how much you've done, in your life, and are you accomplishing anything? And then there's New Year's Eve. Another great opportunity to reflect on if you've actually been productive for the year. And what happened to me is I just hired a bunch of employees. We were about 12 employees at the time, and I realized I had no business for them come January. And I'm just thinking to myself the whole time, everybody's off on Christmas vacation, they're with their family, and here I am looking at the numbers, going, I screwed up, I did it again, we're about to go bankrupt. And for 3 nights, I would lay in a bathtub, and I know you guys are thinking, how the fuck does he fit in a bathtub? I do. And I would lay in the bathtub with my head underwater, with my nose just above, just so that I can breathe, and I would lay there for hours. And I didn't even realize it at the time, but I was actually going through a depression. Some of you guys today, what you do is you Netflix and chill. You know what I'm saying? I know the entrepreneurs in the room, they're like, I never do that. Yes, you do all the time. You just get to a point where you feel overwhelmed, you don't know what to do. And I just remember that I said on the 3rd day, I'm going to stop and I'm going to change something. And it was my birthday when I finally sent an email at 12:30, 1 in the morning, to the previous prime minister of the province, Frank McKenna. Prime minister, right? Premier. I make that, c'est français, je suis bilingue, moi. Les deux. There we go. So, I sent an email to Frank, and within 25 minutes he replied, and he gave me 3 names. Jerry Pond, Steve Palmer, Ken Nickerson. And And that's all he said. He's like, these are the people. Because all I wanted to know, is there anybody like me in this province that might be able to give me some guidance, maybe able to help me, maybe understand what I'm going through. So the first thing I did is I Googled Jerry Pond. Now, I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's like the godfather of tech. He looks like the grumpiest old man in the world. Alarms are going off. The grumpiest old man in the world. I mean, I was like, there's no friggin' way I'm reaching out to this guy. Like, he's not going to take my call. He looks like a mean person. Turns out Jerry is one of the nicest people in the world. You know, I emailed him. Jerry replied right away. Second guy, Steve Palmer, emailed him, called right away. The next day, he said, meet me on Sunday at Tim Hortons on Mountain Road at 7 a.m. I'm like, doesn't this guy have anything better to do on a Sunday morning than meet with me? And we ended up meeting there. I was super nervous. Again, I was 26. And Steve was the COO of Whitehill, one of the largest technology companies in Moncton, raised a bunch of money, hundreds of employees. And I remember at the end of the meeting, I asked him, I said, Steve, by the way, why did you want to meet this morning at 7 a.m. At Tim Hortons? He goes, if you would have said no, I knew you weren't serious. Good lesson. You know what's kind of awesome is at the beginning of this event, I had the privilege of meeting his son out at the table, Brian. I didn't even know Steve had a son. Steve has been one of the most important people in my life, and be able to see his son and share with him the stories of his dad and how he's impacted my life, similar how you heard Marcel in the phone call from me. That happens in the group that I want to talk to you guys about. So don't think that I'm special, or even Marcel or anybody that you hear about. We're different. It's just the way it works when you get in a different group. Ken Nickerson is arguably one of the best angel investors in Canada. And after I sold my company, I called Ken and I said, Ken, I'm really having a hard time because I want to move to San Francisco, but I feel like if I do, I'm turning my back on my city that I'm so proud to be from. And he said the best thing you could ever do for Moncton and New Brunswick is move to San Francisco, learn, and bring it back hereafter. And that's why I'm here. You know, a couple years ago, I had two little boys, Max and Noah. A lot of you guys may have seen them on social media. They are my life, my everything. I remember one time I was in LA. My even more important person in my life is my wife, Renee. I actually was speaking in LA one time, and after I was all done, we were driving back to the hotel, and I said, how'd I do? She goes, you did good, but you didn't mention me. So you guys can all meet Renee later. I'm not going to make her stand up. But, for me, there's been a lot of situations in my life that having the right people around me have really helped me get through that. When we moved back from San Francisco, I just raised money for my last company called Clarity. My wife started a company called Onboardly. We decided to build a summer home that once we realized we were having our second child 11 months later, that we decided to build our dream home. I actually, and if you're a man, just so you understand this, I had my wife she went into labor, and I moved the house while she was in the hospital. I'm not even joking. Like, if anybody knows anything about pregnant women, they like to nest. There was no nesting, but that was the kind of chaos that was going on in our life at the time. And one thing I started to realize is that I didn't have the network that I had once when I was in San Francisco. I missed the people. A lot of people might know who I am today, but that's only because of a lot of the videos and other stories that have been told. But I moved back to Moncton, and I realized one day that I knew more entrepreneurs in every other city in the world than I did in my own city. So I decided one day to change that. I actually got asked I remember it was down at Pestelli's on Main Street. A few guys, Francis McGuire was there, Larry Nelson. I call them the OGs of the city, the original gangsters. They literally own half the city. Like, they own the car dealerships and the Lounsburys. I mean, you got to ask yourself, like, who owns the mall? You guys ever wondered, like, I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but I'm like, who owns that building? They all live in this city, which is cool. So I get asked to go to this lunch because they were thinking about investing or creating a fund to support local entrepreneurs. So I'm sitting at this lunch because somebody had told them that I'd won some kind of award for top investor in Canada, and they're asking me about how can we invest our money in these local entrepreneurs in the city. And that was the moment that it really drove me home that I didn't know these people, And they're trying to solve the problem with money. And then I asked them, I said, do you actually know the 50-plus entrepreneurs, maybe more, that you need to know to actually invest the money? And they said, no. And I was like, I think that's the problem we need to solve. And they were like, well, how do you solve it? One thing I've always done my whole life is I organize meals, dinners, lunches, breakfasts, whatever. I said, I'm going to organize a dinner. I'm going to find the people. You guys are going to grab your posse of OGs, or what I then called the elders. And you guys come, and we're just going to break bread. Like, it's the most powerful thing. So they were like, you're going to do that. I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to call it the Great Canadian Kitchen Party. I mean, because that's what we do in Atlantic Canada. We party in kitchens. And they were on board. And here's what happened. It was the most incredible thing. First thing, I need to figure out, who are these entrepreneurs? Where do they live? What are their names? I didn't know any of them. So I posted on Facebook, hey, does anybody know entrepreneurs doing, $500,000 in revenue or bigger? And it's not about the number, but it just tells me, like, you got a couple employees, you want to grow. And immediately I heard crickets. There's nothing. Nobody was answering. I was like, where are these entrepreneurs? How come we don't know who the growth entrepreneurs? You know what turns out is that as Canadians, we're super humble. Well, when you're humble and you're hiding, it's hard to get help. It's hard to bring those people into the mix. I remember the day after I posted, okay, because I started getting some names for some men, and I said, who are the women? I wanted to make sure that the women were represented, and not one friggin' comment. And I'm sitting there in bed looking over to my wife, and she has a business, and I ask her, what's your revenues last year? And she tells me, and I said, why didn't you answer that was you? Didn't want to do it. She's like, I don't want people to think I'm bragging. It was the most craziest thing. So you know what I had to do? Hand-to-hand combat. All right? I started cold emailing, cold calling, cold messaging entrepreneurs at scale. All day long, I would just send out emails and send out text messages, and then eventually they would call back. Like, it was hilarious. I'd be sitting there, and I'd be like, I'd find the name of a CEO of a company, and I'd be like, hey, John, my name's Dan. Do you have 5 minutes? Here's my cell. I'm free right now. That was it. All right? They would reply back, are you the home builder? And I go, yeah. And then they would call, and I go, I'm just kidding. I'm not the home builder. That's my brother, Pierre. I don't know if you like him or not. Don't hold it against me. Let me tell you what I'm doing. And what I did is I just started asking questions. I wanted to know how they started their business. I wanted to know if they had anybody that mentored them. I wanted to know if they gave back to the community, because I really wanted to curate an incredible group of people that were like-minded to break bread. And I committed to 3 things: great meal, great people, and great speaker. I mean, it was hilarious. Like, for 2 weeks, I paced in my sunroom, and I remember my wife still remembered, because I forgot to tell her. Another thing, guys, if you plan to do something like this, you should ask your wife to, like, is it cool that you're going to spend the next 2 weeks nonstop talking to people on the phone? I ended up talking to 178 people, nonstop. 2 weeks pacing. I remember it was one time I was talking to this woman, Laura. She's the CEO of a drilling company. And we talked for 25 minutes. 25 minutes. I'm telling her the story and the mission and the why, and here's what I'm doing. And I want to bring people together, and I want to support the community. And then she stops me and goes, Dan, what are you asking me? And I said, do you want to come to dinner? She goes, my God, Dan, that's the longest invite to go to dinner I've ever heard. I was just so excited. It was an incredible experience. And what was funny is that I had a friend, Shaw, who was a speaker in London, and I was talking to her, and I was like, Shaw, I need to find a great speaker. I want to really over-deliver for these people. And we were talking, we go back and forth on Skype, and then we couldn't find the right fit. And then finally I said, hey, Shaw, why don't you come speak? And she's like, really? And I said, I'd be honored. So $8,000 later, first-class tickets from London, UK. I flew her in. The funny part was she came in the same day. She had to leave. She has a little boy. She wanted to do this for this community. She believed in the story and the passion I brought to that dinner. The mission was 60 people, 8 people per table, 2 elders. They call themselves something. No, what do they call themselves? I think they're the Elders Council. No, they don't call them the elders. I call them the elders, the gray hairs. Anyways, so 2 pros, 2 seasoned entrepreneurs, and 4 rookie entrepreneurs per table. And what happened is these are all people that I did not know, that I cold called, that I convinced to say yes. I made them all buy their own tickets, $75. I wanted them committed, right? It wasn't going to cover any of the expenses, but I figured, you know what? If you're not willing to pay, you're not going to pay attention. And the day that the event happened, I had to drive to Halifax to pick up the speaker at 2 o'clock. The event's going on at 6. We drive back, and by the time we ended up, dropping her off at the hotel, showering, getting her ready to bring her to the venue, which is at the Cocoa Room in Riverview, everybody was already there. And I show up to what has to be the largest blind date in the world. Because you understand, I show up on stage, and I'm like, hey, I'm Dan. And I'm like, imagine all these people are people I've only talked to on the phone. We've never met in person. And the only reason they're there is because I convinced them this was a good idea. And what transpired was the most magical experience I've ever seen happen in this city for me, right? The conversations that happened, the food was incredible. The talk that Shaw delivered and really put on the onus of that room, that community, to really go find the other entrepreneurs, bring them together, and really share and support them. And I know that there's been organizations started. The coolest thing that Shaw did was say, everybody stand up, and right now at your tables, you're committing right now to meet at another point in time. Call the restaurant, make the reservation. I want you guys not to make it just another event, but to actually take action. So one of my challenges to you in this room is to organize your own dinner. So think, as soon as you leave this room, what's the restaurant and who are the 6 people you want to bring together? Ideally, they don't know each other. And a lot of you guys have participated at my founders' dinners. You guys are probably going to be like, well, I want Dan to be there. Don't invite me. I'll show up if you invite me, but you don't need to invite me. Invite other people. Bring them together, because one of the most powerful things you can do is break bread. I wouldn't be on this stage if it wasn't for that night. One of the people I got to meet there was a man named Martell. A lot of you guys might have heard him speak. He's an incredible soul, an incredible person. He just happens to live 6 kilometers down the street from me. We had never met up to that point. And it was through that event that one day we're sitting on my back patio, and he turns to me and he says, Dan, have you ever thought of speaking, of coaching, of teaching other people some of the stuff you've learned in business? And I said, no. Almost 2 years later, 100+ videos on YouTube, and an incredible opportunity to support entrepreneurs like Marcel and many other people in this room came from that conversation. I got a lot of love for people in this room. A lot of love. And some of you guys may only know me through the internet, but know that I pay attention and I watch and I see, and you'll not meet anybody that cares more about this community than I do. But there's one thing that I know needs to happen for you guys to be able to connect and have people around you that are really going to support you. So I'm going to ask you guys all to stand up. This is the number one question. A lot of you guys are thinking, who would I invite to this dinner? Why would they want to spend time with me? What would I say? I don't want to sound stupid. Who should they be? All these questions. And I get them. They're all legit. But here's the question that I want you guys to take away from this event is, who am I without my career, my kids, my brothers, my family? Who am I without my name? Because those are all just identities. And if you can't first start to love that person, to build a connection with that person, you'll never be able to do it out there. Thanks for having me, guys.